A mouse is a pointing device that detects two-dimensional motion relative to a surface. This motion is typically translated into the motion of a pointer on a display, which allows for fine control of a graphical user interface. Physically, a mouse consists of an object held in one's hand with one or more buttons. Mice often also feature other elements such as touch surfaces and wheels, which enable additional control and dimensional input. Douglas Engelbart was born in Portland, Oregon, went to college at the Oregon State University. Douglas's dream was to be able to have people share things in real time with other users. Doug Engelbart reportedly conceived the mouse during a conference lecture in 1961. His design, in 1963, used rolling wheels inspired by mechanical area measuring devices called planimeters invented in the 1800s. Engelbart and his research staff rounded up the best breed of pointing devices to compare and rigged up some in-house prototypes to add to the mix, such as a foot pedal and knee-operated device. Engelbart also reviewed his earlier notes with his lead engineer Bill English, who built a prototype of the handheld device with the perpendicular wheels mounted in a carved-out wooden block, with a bottom on top to test with others. This was the first mouse. A computer mouse that gives the user the ability to move the cursor and click the mouse buttons with their feet. It is primarily used by users with disabilities or with high back or neck problems. It is also promoted as a way to prevent such problems in the future as a means to increase productivity by not having to move one's hand between the keyboard and the mouse. The knee-operated device invention teaches an improved method of controlling a cursor on a computer screen without using the hand, by strapping the mouse around the patella section of the leg with a patella strap utilizing leg muscle movement, while sitting down to control the direction of the cursor. After manipulating the cursor by the body movement, keeping both hands on the keyboard, and programmable function, keys and other hands-free appendage, attached button, motion, and a voice device to execute a command. The designing of the first mouse was way too expensive and was not cost-effective for people to use in their homes. On the second design of the mouse, they used a two-slotted wheel design and special encoders to read as the ball rolled. Eventually, the team came up with a rubber ball coating to cover so that it would not get dirty. It could roll and read different things more effectively. Mostly some of the same designs are used today in some of the most modern mouses we have. In the early 80s, the design was changed from one small button to one that would cover the entire front portion of the mouse. The first Microsoft mouse was made in 1983. William K. English is a computer engineer who contributed to the development of computer mouse while working for Douglas Engelbart at SRI International Augmentation Research Center. SRI International Augmentation Research Center was founded in the 1960s by electrical engineer Douglas Engelbart to develop and experiment with new tools and techniques for collaboration and information processing. The main product to come out of ARC was the revolutionary online system, better known as the abbreviation NLS. ARC is also known for the invention of the computer mouse, pointing device, and its role in the early formation of the Internet. Engineers at Germany's Telefunken also developed and invented a mouse in the mid-1960s. First described in 1968, their version used a rolling ball, essentially a small upside-down trackball, which became the standard for decades. Tragically, Douglas died of kidney failure July 2nd, 2013. He was 88.
Well, to an interesting way to portray it for you, so we're going to try our best to show you rather than tell you about this program. Okay, there's Don Andrews' hand in Menlo Park, and in a second we'll see the screen that he's working and the way the tracking spot moves in conjunction with movements of that mouse. I don't know why we call it a mouse. Sometimes I apologize. It started that way, and we never did change it. All right, as it moves up or down or sideways, so does the tracking spot. And the principles for its operation are quite easy to see. If you'll turn it over, Don. Its principle is that there are two wheels that roll on the surface. But since they're at right angles and kind of sharp edges, one will roll and the other slide in one direction. And as the mouse moves over a surface, then each of those wheels either slides sideways without rolling or rolls an amount that very closely duplicates the particular component of horizontal or vertical and the net motion it makes.
I was sitting in a conference probably about 1961, and it was a conference on computer graphics, primitive as it was then. And I think I got bored at the kind of way they were dealing with it because, it was going to get interactive and they should realize that more. I realized that, pointing at the screen was always going to be important. And, it just suddenly occurred to me, why don't I put wheels in two directions and get them on a device like this and move it around, and each wheel gets registered in the computer as how far you move up and down or how far you move sideways. Oh, it'd be great.
If you take a mouse and move it through some closed trajectory back to exactly the same point, usually the tracking spot won't come back to exactly the same place it was on the screen. And for that sense, it wouldn't work well if you're trying to trace maps or other figures and diagrams. But the way we use it continuously and exclusively is to watch the screen and to follow it around, and we use this merely as a device to move that tracking spot, and your eye on the tracking spot, you really don't care whether it follows exactly this or not.